We are back. We are back. And we have a special guest back again, Lauren. So let's kick this off. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Passion Break. We're all about the holiday cheer in our ugly sweater get up wear. Totally meant to rhyme. All right, so here's what we need you to do just to make sure that you can see us and we can see you and hear you and all the fun stuff. If you could just pop in a hi, we're here. That would be super cool. Let us know if you are hearing all of us here again. You're our man. Thank you for being here. We are going to have such an exciting and super important conversation today, which is super fitting because we're nearing the end of the year and we're all thinking about maybe what's next year right after we cram ourselves with all the things we have to do right before the holidays. So today we're talking about being fine and the whole conversation around fine and how it is actually the nemesis to passion. And I know that Lauren is very passionate about this conversation because she is the creator of hashtag Fine as a Trap. So let us move into introductions. I never actually introduce myself because I just assume, if you're on my channel, you know who I am. But I am the founder of the Passion Center, and Passion Break was co-created by myself and a really good colleague, Tracy Borreson, as a way to keep everybody inside of the passion conversation and to share some new perspectives on what passion is, to break through all that fluffy, guffy stuff that's out in the marketplace about passion, take it from the air and bring it right down to ground level where we know what to actually do with it. So before we get into this conversation, I'd love for Tracy to come up and introduce herself, and then we're going to go to our guest star expert, Lauren, to introduce herself as we kick this off. Tracy.
Hello, everybody. Here is my ugly Christmas sweater for today, which has snowman on it. Let snow, which I maybe you should have saved for a different day because the weather here is the worst. And it's like minus 42 degrees Celsius with the wind chill today, which is just dumb. But I know who is like, why do we live here? I don't know. There's lots of other good things, but the cold weather is not one of them. I'm Tracy Borreson. I am, yes, the co-creator of Passion Break with Kira. And passion is something that is very important to me in my work as a personal branding coach because, let's be honest, the experience you create for other people, which is what I think personal brand is, and whether or not you're showing up in passion are highly related. Because let's everybody think about those times where you were like just in a vibe and you were just like really being you and you were in total flow and the experience that creates for people versus maybe some of the more reserved or uncomfortable behavior or ways that you show up that when you're not aligned with your passion. So it's been super fun for me to explore the concept of personal brand and passion together, work on my passion, which is related to personal branding, and to bring all the things together because at the end of the day, this is the point of Passion Break, is to give people space to make time, not find time, peeps. You'll not find time. You'll make time to be in the passion conversation, and that is what will help you find more passion, see more passion, not find. We don't find. See it in your life. So that's me. Now let's meet Lauren.
Oh, hello. I do not have an ugly Christmas sweater, but I do have a wintry ski lodgy kind of sweater. So that's what I came in tonight. I'm like sort of theme adjacent. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive leadership coach. And as Kira said, my tagline and my hashtag are fine is a trap. And when I think of the word fine, it makes me kind of shudder because anything that we have love or hate or any kind of energy around isn't and can't be fine. You can have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that is fine and you will stop thinking about lunch 10 minutes later. But you can't have a job or a life or a family or a relationship with yourself that is fine because it's not actually fine. And fine is the self-soothing thing we say to ourselves when we're trying to justify why things aren't great. So we say, It's fine that I'm working so many hours. They're paying me a lot of money. It's fine that my manager is so mean. I have a vice president title, and that's what I've been going for. And we make ourselves settle because we've gotten bits and pieces of what we wanted. And I say you can have whatever you want. You just have to get confident enough, excited enough, and passionate enough to go for it. And you have to have the right support in place. And Kira and I met, and Tracy and I met, and we just all love this passion conversation. And the first time that Kira and I talked, we recognized that fine is actually the opposite of passion, because active dislike or active distaste or active anger or fear or sadness or whatever it is passion in another way. It's not in the way that we want to use it. And so fine, the absence of passion is fine. And I'm really excited about the conversation tonight.
And I'm also really excited about this conversation tonight, because every time I hear you talk about it, it just makes complete sense. And you talk about it like someone who's actually lived inside of that experience enough to gain the intelligence from the experience, right? And I think that's what's really important, to understand the nuances of this language. Once you experience it, you completely get it, right? And there are so many of us, myself included, being in various parts of my life, which I don't regret or anything like that. Like, I don't harbor negative feelings around my past, because I understand it was a vehicle to get me here once making those decisions that I needed to make and confront and doing the scary things. But you're absolutely right. When you're in a state of fine, you're in a state of like boxing yourself out from experiencing the juiciness of life. And we do that for many reasons, right? Like, sometimes it could be a trauma response. Sometimes we could be so capped out that we don't want to feel any other emotion than fine in that moment, until that gets old, and it will. And, you know, like, another reason for why we might stay is that we've learned to, what's the word I love? Like, so it's like, we try to practicalize, that's my word, just made that up, practicalize our ways through life versus emotionally feel our ways through life. And we, for some reason, begin to develop a preference or a value for one over the other. Mm-hmm. And so it's logical that we want to be in a job that pays us well. That's totally logical. And it's logical that we want to move up and make something of ourselves. And it's logical to want to make all the money and do all the things. All those things are completely logical. And if you're not aligned on the way up, it's also painful as hell, mm-hmm. right? And we can numb that pain by just saying, it's fine, I should be grateful. This is like blah, 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 blah. We have endless levels of stories on what we attach to those environments. And again, this is not about making anyone wrong if that's the place that you're in right now. There's reasons for why you're there. This is about shining light on the fact that it's not fine, and it's not fine to be fine. This is our life that we get to create and we get to enjoy, and we have this exponentially vast availabilities of choices and emotions that we get to create. And if we're boxing all of that out to be in this one environment where we're numbing our feelings, we're numbing ourselves, we're numbing our voices, we're numbing what we want, we're numbing all those things. Oh, that's not okay. That breaks my heart. I don't want anyone to be there, right? So yes, this conversation is about sharing what is fine in our life and how do we shine a light on it. And let's explore why it's okay for you to just be fine. Why is that okay? Tracy.
Well, it's not okay. But you know what? Something that's coming up for me is that you're talking about numbing. And I don't know, for whatever reason, it made me think of, I had I have bunions in my feet, and I had this like foot therapy where it's like this little like vibration thing that and in order to, it hurts. So they numb your feet, right? Like this is where I'm going with this. Anyway, the numbing is never permanent, right? And I think this is the thing that people like that's something you have to continually do. That's something you have to continually put effort into to numb things, right? So whether it is like me putting numbing cream on my foot, which would have like I had to do pretty consistently, or it's some of the things we do in life that numb us. There's like, we've talked about like addictive passion and harmonious passion on the show before. We do those things and then we get addicted to doing those things, and then instead of getting addicted to the things that actually create passion for us, which is still addictive passion in a different conversation, but that we're still putting effort and energy into numbing something instead of putting the effort and energy into discovering something, into trying something different. That's just the thing that's coming up for me is like effort and energy is being expelled. So maybe if we explore what we're expelling that effort and energy on, we might not be so inclined to keep giving it to numbing.
I love that analogy. I think of like tooth pain and having to like, right, having to numb it out. But the other thing about numbing is that pain is a messenger. It's a signal. We want to actually feel pain because the pain is there to ring an alarm bell to say, hey, look at me. There's something here that needs to be addressed. And I don't want to have you shut me up by just numbing me. And yet we can talk about numbing in the form of self-medication. We can talk about it in the form of like addictive habits like smoking or drinking or, like whatever, a lot of other unhealthy things that we do. But we do it because even in that numbing experience, we want to feel some sense of pleasure. Mm-hmm. And the body is designed to feel pleasure. It wants to feel that. So if we're restricting it in certain areas of our life, we're going to leak in other areas of our life. But when we leak, we don't have control over that. That's our bodies doing it, right? So that's where we become a slave to all these different dimensions of, putting up these structures to help us to feel how we were designed to feel naturally, but we're limiting ourselves from doing that. Maya, you just said that you freed yourself from being fine this year and are looking forward to 2023. Would love to hear more about that. Let us know what you've done to break through that fine paradigm. So yeah, Lauren.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, so many things are coming up for me. So Kira, you said earlier a phrase that really caught my ear, which was get to. And when you are working in positive passion, everything that you go for is stuff you get to do. And when we are stuck in fine, we sit in the have tos. And when we're in the have tos, that's when the numbing behavior comes in. And it's when the it could be worse game comes in, which is, it could be worse. I could be not making this much money. It could be worse. I could be laid off. It could be worse, right? And we play this game with ourselves where we want to make ourselves feel lucky for being fine. Yes. Right? And we feel like we have this, like, I don't know if when you were a kid, you ever did this, but this happened at like birthday parties where there was like a sandbox filled with treasures and you like put your hand in and pull out a treasure, right? And everybody only got one, and it was like a sticker or a little toy or something, right? Everybody only got one. So, your friends got all the cool stickers and then you come out with like a broken slinky and you're like, oh man. And everybody's like, oh, it's fine. You only get one, And I think we do that in our careers and our lives, and we limit ourselves. We have these limiting beliefs that we can only have so much of something. So if and I'm sure that you see this with people coming into the Passion Center. I see this with clients all the time. As a coach, is that people come in and they are already telling me what they are willing to give up in order to get something towards their passion, right? And so I'm willing to take a lower salary if I can get a higher job title. I'm willing to take a job title cut if I can get into this company that I really want. And so we're making these trades, right? And we're looking at our slinky and wishing we could have stickers and just sort of saying like, well, at least I got a toy. At least I got one thing.
Well, I think a part of that is cognitive dissonance, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So when there's something that's starting to come into our awareness that is contradictory to what is happening, there's a lot of discomfort that happens from tension between the contrast. And sometimes that can be really overwhelming, right? Because our immediate brain goes to very binary forms of thinking. Like, oh my God, I have to leave this and just shut it down and start something new and blah, 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 and all the things that come in with that. Or you're right, we got to trade. We got to be like, okay, well, I'll give up this to get this. And we go through this bartering system within our own dreams. And that is because nobody's ever been taught, or at least this is something that, you know, came up later in my life, but no one's been taught the mindset of abundance versus the mindset of limitation. And if you have the mindset of limitation, we think about, of course, there's limits within resources and all that kind of stuff. And it becomes very competitive in our minds. And we need to, like, you know, put something over there to make it work. And it becomes this really big jigsaw puzzle without thinking, well, what would it look like if you could actually have both? Why does it have to be, we say this a lot as well, why does it have to be a this or that? Because you're right. We have clients that come in to be like, well, to go after my passion, I'm going to have to give up my really high paying professional gig, right? Because there's no way I could do something that I love and get paid what I'm getting paid. And there's also this other thing of like, to get to work really hard and to feel the pain of busy. There's this weird, it's like a nuance, a human nuance. It's this really weird feeling of being important and this very weird feeling of earning the money I'm making, right? I'm working so hard, I'm earning all this money. So it's like, where did that come from? You know, like, why? Why do we have to feel that pain for this assumed reward such as money? Why can't that feel good? Why can't that feel easy?
Can I just slide in here because I'm like, excuse me. The societal narrative. So here's the thing, right? Like, I'm thinking about this in like one-on-one relationships because this is very common in like personal relationships, is that you have to compromise, right? It's common belief that you have to compromise because and to some degree it's true because two individual people are never going to agree 100% of the time, right? You have to compromise. But what people interpret that to mean is you have to compromise the things that are important to you. And that's where we take the narrative into a dangerous arena, right? So it kind of started off good in being like, yeah, this is something like the three of us, we get along most of the time, not all of the time. We have different thoughts, we have different experiences, right? That's normal. And I mean, I did this for a long time in a relationship. Trade who I am so someone else can be comfortable, right? And I don't think that that's uncommon. And we do the same thing at work, right? Like, oh, you know what? I was having a really interesting conversation with a new connection yesterday. And I was talking to her about how I hated physics, right? Like, physics was never my thing. I'm bad at physics. And that's fine. My son is awesome at that. And I'm going to find someone smart at physics. And she was like, what made you think that? And I'm like, well, I got a 78. I got a 78% in physics. That was so bad, right? But more so, what was really interesting is I had a really combative relationship with my physics teacher in high school. And it was really interesting because what she said was like, he might have been like threatened by you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I never thought of it that way, right? And in these interpersonal relationships, that's what happens, right? Somebody starts to sparkle, and then you're like, ooh, but that sparkle, then that like dims my sparkle. So we can't have like too much of that. We should have just like this.
We should compromise our sparkles so that we all have equal space to shine. Is that the way that fire works, people? Physics, chemistry. No, it doesn't. It creates more, and there's more space. Science. Roy, hey, nice to see you. Thanks for joining in the vibe. Yes, and I agree with you. There is this thing of compromising self for other and compromising other for self. Now that treads on a very it's a careful balance with that for me, because I do believe that to share space with everyone, there needs to be space for all voices, and not all voices are going to harmonize.
Mhm.
Some voices will, retract others, will cancel others out. Some voices will create conflict. So the question is, and this is really the root of it all, how can we be true to ourselves, our needs, and have those things met, and um, you know coexist in the nature of all things, as well as get all the things, right, that we want. And of course there's going to be limits to that as well, because Tracy, if you got all the things, then is there room for Lauren to get all the things, and is there room for me to get all the things? Like, what does that, or is it just we can all get, like, so there is this interesting
There's an
fine.
assumption that all the things are the same, right? Like the things that you want are the same things that I want, and we all want that one red Mercedes right there, and therefore we have to compete for it, right? But there's lots of red Mercedes. You can have one. When you get a car, and you get a car. And that was, we were actually doing
Actually,
that.
where this is coming from is something that I heard Said Guru say. And he's a mystic, and I mean, like, he's everywhere, but he was on Impact Theory with Tom Bailu, and he was saying the same thing. He was just like, sometimes we're grateful that not all prayers are answered, because we don't get to see the whole picture. We get to see only little pieces of the picture. So when I'm saying prayers, but I'm going to translate that into wants or desires or needs or whatever the case might be. We're seeing it from our lens, and we're not seeing how all pieces come together to create this thing. And if that is, obviously the way that it works, you have your perception, Lauren, you have yours, I have mine. And when we harmonize that, when we jam, when we go after the things, how can we create that kind of collaboration, harmonization, versus the other kind, that like competitive flair, where we feel like we're going to be less than because someone's getting more than. And I think that's really relevant for being in the workplace too, because in the workplace, our behaviors are driven by the compensations that we receive. And those compensations can sometimes be really icky and tricky, because, like, it's created for this like bottom line agenda. So when we talk about passion, when we talk about being able to nurture the things that we want, when we talk about desiring more, and all of that in that interplay of each other, what can a model look like that incorporates and factors in how humans naturally are, and create an understanding that we don't have to self-compromise in the journey of wanting to get to our mores, or wanting to feel our fullest, or wanting to be fully expressed in our passions. Right?
I'm going to give an unpopular answer that's going to make people clutch their pearls.
Clutch their pearls. Terminal.
Lauren, how could you? You have to put yourself first. We look at words like selfish and self-serving and self-love and self-care, and we think they are indulgent.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not. And yes, will there be a world where the three of us are competing for the same red Mercedes? Maybe sometimes, but we're all kind people, and we're all reasonable people, and we would sit down and figure it out. There are more occasions where we want to collaborate and integrate and all be full of joy and satisfaction. And so if you look at Maya's comments in the chat, that, she really took control, had a conflict with her CEO, and decided to go for her. And now the career that she's in, I don't know what it is, but I see that she said she's certified in DISC. And so there are assessments there that she's doing the work that she actually wants to be doing. And therefore she is serving people better, right? We do this thing for ourselves as we grow in our lives and careers, where we think we have to push everything out. We have to serve, we have to do more, we have to keep proving that we're worth it, whatever it is. And we forget to look at what's actually going to bring us joy, what actually follows our passion, our drive, and what we're actually going to be the best at. And along the way, if we do follow ourselves first, the benefit is we serve the world better. I certainly serve the world the best I've ever served the world because I chose to do what I do now in my life and in my career. And I did like a really good job for 20 years in HR. And I enjoyed it for like 15 of those years. But what I'm doing now, I'm doing because it's where my heart is. And so I'm serving people better. And I did lose a couple of people along the way. And sometimes you do because they're not aligned with you being happy. Some of those people want to protect you, and some of those people are jealous, and some of those people don't want to lose the you that they had because you serve them really well.
Oh, that's another thing about complex adaptive systems, right? Like it's not just your identity, but it's your position inside of somebody else's identity as well. So when we create changes in others. They are forced to see us differently, and they're not get what you used to give either.
Right.
And
yeah,
so
we're upsetting the ecosystem.
We're upsetting the balance. And people don't like upsetting balance. So of course there's going to be resistance to that 1,000%. And I share exactly and tremendously like your journey too, Lauren, because I think in the time that I was going after the things in a corporate setting, I felt like I was passionate about what I was doing. I felt like I enjoyed it. There was a lot of learning, a lot of opportunities. What I realize now, being on the other side of that and moving in the direction of where my heart is that all of those things were ambition. It wasn't passion. And I was getting fueled by that. And it can sometimes model each other. We can confuse our ambition with our passion because it's another driver, a very deep driver for our biologies, right? But now that I see the difference, you can't unsee it. So you feel, and I feel the same way. You're in your greatest service when you're functioning from your true expression, the things that you want to create in the world. And sometimes you have the opportunity to do that in corporate. I'm not saying that this is like poo-poo on corporate and this is all about entrepreneurship. I think that there's a lot of people that do fantastic inside of certain settings, and they get their hearts to be in the game and they get to serve the way that they need to serve. But I think that's kind of what's missing. It's the conversation that's missing. There's we can get pretty transactional in our lives, going back to our original conversation of fine. It's like, I'll do this to get that. I'll do this to get that. And we're constantly negotiating. But what we're not, in my opinion, what we may not be asking or what we may be forgetting to ask is, well, how much am I giving to get what? And are there other costs involved? Right? Because in corporate, I had to give up a lot to get the money and to get, the growth and all of that stuff. But I didn't factor in all of the things that started to shut down. It was a considerable investment of time and energy to learn. I put out all of the things I used to enjoy outside of work. Social life, what social life? My colleagues and clients were my social life, and all the things that, predefines a person's understanding of meaning and how to get that rich juices, but also the things that conveniently aren't taught either. So it's kind of this journey of understanding what are those needs, what am I paying for, and how long am I paying for it, and is there interest that's added on to my payment, right? So yes, a lot going on in these comments here. Let me just see. Yes, Hillary, feeling undeserving of joy or something better can relate back to past trauma or previous pain points. Unfortunately, this is common and we all deserve a space to work through that and identify our worth. So true. And I'm very, very blessed to be living in a time period right now where that's a conversation that can be had. Because 10 years ago, we weren't talking about that. We were just driving through the motions. So now we're at the 30-minute mark, and we are about to head over to the live community that we have going and share in dialogue. We want to learn about you. We want to learn about what you have to say to this conversation and create a more intimate environment for us to all connect and deepen the vibe, deepen the conversation. So inside of the Passion Lab, we are going to be hopping over there now. Do we have the link, Trace?
I'm on mute, just kidding. The link is in the community.
Yay! All right, guys, so we're heading over to the community. For those of you who don't know about the community, you got to reach out to us and we can give you a nice little pass into it so that we can continue the conversation there. And before we go, I just want to wish you all an amazing holiday if you decide not to join. And we will be seeing you. Oh my gosh. Are we on next week, Trace?
I was going to ask you because I was like, I could be on next week.
I could be on next week too. We're going to be on next week, folks. So same time, same channel. We will see you then. For those of you that are interested in the lab, come on over. We'll see you over for a deeper conversation.
And yes, I just want to reiterate Hillary's message to Jit, who very bravely said that he's still working to find his passion. It is never too late. And there's like so many good things that you can take now. I know a lady who started to get insight into this when she was like 73, and she said it was like one of the most meaningful things she could ever do. And that's life is not over. There's so much more of it. Let's make it as filled with passion as possible.
Yes, Jet. And we should talk too, because I feel as though there is always iterations to these conversations, and there's so many different ways to be applying and feeling through your passion and contributing in that direction as well. So in terms of the idea of it being late or the idea of running out of time, yeah, I get it. Age is a thing.
Or Jit, connect with Jurgen.
Oh, yes.
Jurgen will have something to share with you.
All right. So
you're gonna have something to share with everybody. Everybody can connect with Jurgen if you want, but specifically, I think that's helpful. Okay, I'm gonna drop off, and I'll see everybody in the community.
All right, see you in the community, guys, and next week if you don't decide to join.